With my team, they have been working on their Build Together task, which they focused on the effects of poverty in society and effects on health and well-being. So it was, as I say, I've said in the speech that we've just done, it was really, really inspiring to see the teams work together and put together this task. And as they're going to speak to you, they're going to show you those skills that they've learned throughout the competition, that they've learned in all of the mentoring that we've done. And I'm really, really proud of them, so I hope you enjoy it.
How does it feel living with nothing? Living every day worrying that your world could collapse? This is the reality for around 13.4 million people living across the UK at the very moment. Now, in school, we've all been taught poverty to be not having enough money, but the reality of that is very different. In fact, the Cambridge Dictionary defines poverty as the state or condition in which a person or community lacks the financial resources or essentials to meet a minimum standard of living. But even then, this doesn't really begin to even scratch the surface. Homelessness, the most extreme form of poverty, is a great example of this.
Now, let me ask you this question. Raise your hand if you've ever walked past a homeless person in the street. Keep your hand up if you've given them food or money. And still keep your hand up if, at least once, you've walked past them and ignored them. But have you ever actually wondered how they were feeling?
Current education about poverty as a social issue is seriously lacking. So we'd like to talk to you about how and why the national curriculum needs to change and do better.
With the poverty rate nationally on the rise, it's important to understand that poverty is more than just an economic status. It's a culture. It determines social circles, success in school, relationships with friends and family, where and how you live, hobbies, jobs, your physical and your mental health. The list is endless. It affects every part of your life, and yet so often the reality of it is trivialized.
People in poverty can become stuck, trapped, whether because of financial or cultural barriers or circumstances out of people's control is irrelevant. Because once you're living chronically below the poverty line, it can be near impossible to get back out because of what we call the cycle of poverty, which is the set of factors or events by which, once started, poverty is likely to continue unless there's outside intervention, which there almost always isn't.
Poverty, whether it's living in an unsuitable home or on the streets, impacts your mental health in several ways. People feel feelings of isolation, desperation, and the impacts it has on your mental health are immense.
Now, many of you will see this sleeping bag as a simple tool that could be used for camping. It could be used on a residential trip like we've been on this weekend. Often, if you would like one, you can just go to the shop and pick one up. However, for a lot of people, that's not the case. Now, for you, when you see this sleeping bag, you might think of family adventures, you might think of camping, you might think of friends and shared moments. But for a lot of people, like I said just before, that is not the case. With a sleeping bag, they may think of the most tragic times in their life.
An example could be poor housing, where the landlord has not maintained the property properly, and they can often be mould-stricken, dirty or unsafe. Mould-infested properties can lead to serious respiratory problems, and prolonged exposure can be life-changing. But for most, families watching their children's mental health and physical health deteriorate can lead to their own mental health downward spiral, the feeling of hopelessness that leads to depression. The University College of London describes the shortage of good quality, affordable housing an unacceptable state of affairs. One family even stated that they couldn't sleep for having to replace overflowing buckets stemming from a leak in their bathroom floor. Fast forward a few weeks, the bathroom floor collapsed into their kitchen. No facility to wash and cook. The stress was beyond belief.
Poverty could make you turn to substance abuse, recreational drugs, and alcohol to cope. It can cause anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, paranoia, as well as causing a variety of diseases. But this is a never-ending cycle. It can cause serious circumstances such as getting fired from work, massively affecting a person's mental health. To soothe the pain, they take more substance, and the cycle starts again. These might be hard topics to discuss or hear about, but it must be addressed. If not, we'll grow up ignoring the importance of understanding how some people are forced to live.
Now, as a child, poverty can have a huge and detrimental impact. And sadly, poverty can cause your parents and even your guardians to have bad habits such as taking drugs, alcohol abuse, and that way they get addictions. Now, this topic is considered somewhat of a social taboo. However, without creating awareness and talking about it, you will not be able to break down that barrier, and this is needed especially in our world and our society today. Now, people in a sheltered environment face problems such as parental dimming, drugs, abuse, and sadly go out into the world with nothing but this knowledge and these values. This often leads people to growing up with a huge range of problems, such as severe damage to their mental health and their physical health. People around them may also bully them and discriminate due to the lack of knowledge around this topic. And sadly, this bullying and discrimination can lead to further mental and physical health problems.
So why does it matter? Why should we care? Well, learning about current and ongoing issues is important. And where better to get a standardized, regulated learning portal than in school itself? Education from a young age in our school environment is the key to ensuring our future has increased compassion, support, and empathy for others in our society. We are all responsible for caring for others in our community, and sometimes this can be done in the simplest of ways. Be kind. You never know what others are going through. Don't judge someone. Don't make assumptions on someone's life.
Most children grow up in a sheltered environment and don't know or understand the difficulties faced by others in their community. If we can discuss problems in a safe environment, not only will it allow people to become more open-minded, but it will help them to prevent prejudice against the people in poverty. This secure environment will allow people to live without fear or shame for what they're going through. It will allow them to inherit positive opinions and share their experiences with others. And most of all, will help them overcome life-scarring mental health issues.
Now, we believe that a lesson every half term in schools dedicated to in-depth social studies which link to poverty would be really helpful in our cause to educate people at a young age. Now, these lessons would include physical health education and mental health education, above lasting impacts as well as social repercussions for society. For example, we have things such as how substance misuse affects communities, how poverty affects crime rates, and how members of society are more likely to suffer in poverty today.
Most importantly, we as students can learn to look out for signs of poverty and learn how to reach out in order to help others. We can point it out to adults, charities, and those who can help, so we do not dismiss this social responsibility or continue to be ignorant.
So, ultimately, by improving the national curriculum on poverty, its causes and its impacts on people, we can make a huge difference to our communities and begin this first step towards equality.
That was really, really good. So I'd like to invite the judges if you'd like to ask any questions.
That was brilliant, guys. Thank you so much. And you all spoke super passionately about that, so well done to all of you. That was really, really interesting. I'm just kind of wondering, in terms of, obviously, in terms of the curriculum, the education side of things, is there anything that you think that you could get the young people involved in actually doing in terms of the social action, as well as the education side of things? What do you think that they might be able to do in addition to that to support this?
I think there's a lot of emphasis at the moment on like teenagers getting involved in like soup kitchens and active involvement, but I think if you're focusing on younger people, that's obviously not a particularly ideal route. So I think kind of promoting the ideas of small involvement in schools, like I think most schools have, you know, the harvest where you bring in foods and give it to things that can then be donated. So I think emphasis on that and education on that.
No, absolutely. I think that was a really valuable point. And one thing that stuck out to me recently is within our local council, we've done a survey, and it was around different issues that young people think they face today. Sadly, 90% of them young people who were under the age of 16 spoke about their financial issues and how they believe that they don't have the resources they need to cope in their own household. And I think as a young person, especially someone that young under the age of 16, when you've got to think about your financial income and the food and your electricity bill, it's absolutely shocking. And you know, that should be something for the grown-ups to think about, not a young person. And I think young people being educated around this or being aware of it and how we can actually push on, move forwards. Even things such as reducing your electricity bill by turning off lights. Simple tasks such as this could be valuable. And absolutely with today's crisis, it would be fantastic if we can get more implemented in schools across the region and across the country.
Absolutely amazing, and such a brilliant topic, an awful topic to talk about in our day and age. Sorry, microphone. My voice is going as well. Brilliant topic, superbly delivered, wonderful. We talk about poverty, we talk about poverty in society, we talk also about food poverty and petrol poverty and poverty on so many different levels. Have you managed at all to go to any homeless St John ambulance outlets, not outlets, what I call units, to go and actually find out what your clients would like? Are they lonely? What do they need?
In fact, I was once homeless, and I think living there, and I've met many people that have been homeless as well, and I think they do need most of all comfort, and they need work, employment, and I think if we educate people about this, then they can help other people.
Amazing. What a journey you've been on, testament to you and your family, you're here. Well done.
That was a really, really good pitch, and I really enjoyed it. My question is, where on the national curriculum would you add this? Like, what age range would you think?
So we were thinking of adding this from a primary school age, just because we know that these are difficult topics, but if they are normalised from that young age, it's important that these people, young people, can learn about how other people do live, and it's important from junior school, primary school, that if people start talking about it from this age, then they won't have that prejudice against other people when they grow older.
Just a follow-up question. Do you think there are any drawbacks from introducing such a sensitive topic at such a young age? Any drawbacks?
I think one of the drawbacks is a lot of children, because they've gone through their life not knowing about this, I think one of the drawbacks would be it might come as a little bit of a shock, and I think maybe that's why at the moment not many people teach this in schools, but I think if we do it from a young age but make sure we do it sensitively, then it will lessen the impact at an older age.
That was truly amazing, thank you all for that. Just a quick one, you spoke about how you wanted to do more on, you probably teach it as physical health and mental health to get more awareness. How would you actually go about teaching these sessions, or how would you want to actually implement them similar to what Living said, but implement in the classroom environment?
You know, I think in schools, a lot more schools they're bringing up first aid classes, for instance. And I think having teachers who are properly trained in mental health situations, in situations involving poverty, whether that be food, whether that be with fuel, whether that be with electricity and money. And I think having these teachers who are properly trained up and who can deliver certain, whether it be after school sessions for people who might want to attend, or whether it be actually setting that school curriculum for a certain amount of time, like an hour a day even, if you could have that properly trained up in a class full of students, then it would really spread the word. Even if websites were created about the topic and they were pushed out in schools to get more publicity, more popularity around it, that would be absolutely fantastic.
If I can just follow
Yeah.
on that. Also, so like you said, it's very much split into physical effects and mental effects. And I think currently what you've got in school is highly focused on physical effects, which generally is just taught as a, here's your bullet point list of what it can cause. So, and like Living was saying, it's obviously a lot more sensitive to be talking about the mental effects. So I think if you're going to be introducing that at a younger age, it's got to be by professionals, it's got to be people sharing their personal stories and coming in, people who are working at these shelters helping people talking about what it's actually like rather than just, this is what Wikipedia says about it kind of thing.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you guys, well done for that. You did really well.